Speaker tonight. Her name is Becky Ivory. And Becky, as you make your way up here, I'm just going to tell everyone a little bit about you. She has dealt with the all too common challenges of a broken family, anxiety, childhood sexual abuse, and an eating addiction. Helping others move past their seemingly insurmountable barriers to live a life of success and significance is her driving mission. An award-winning teacher, Becky is passionate about helping people prevent child abuse by teaching healthy outward boundaries as well as powerful internal boundaries that can not only prevent sexual abuse but also help existing victims to heal. In her spare time, which I can't believe you have any, Becky loves to sing, she loves to read, and she loves to hang out with her growing family. Our keynote speaker tonight, welcome Becky Ivory.
Thank you so much. Thank you. 'Twas a dangerous cliff, as they freely confessed, though to walk near its crest was so pleasant. Yet over its terrible edge there had slipped a duke, and full many a peasant. So the people said something would have to be done. But their projects did not at all tally. Some said, put a fence round the edge of the cliff. Some, an ambulance down in the valley. But the cry for the ambulance carried the day, for it spread to the neighboring city. A fence might be useful or not, it is true. But every heart filled with pity for those who fell over the terrible cliff. And people in highway and alley gave pound and gave pence, not to put up a fence, but an ambulance down in the valley. For the cliff is okay if you're careful, they said. And if folks even slip and are falling, it isn't the slipping that hurts them so much as the shock down below when they're stopping. So, day after day, as these mishaps occurred, quick forth would the rescuers sally and pick up the victims that fell off the cliff with their ambulance down in the valley. Then an old sage remarked, it's amazing to me that people give far more attention to repairing results than to stopping the cause when they'd far better aim at prevention. Let us stop at its root this mischief, said he. Come, neighbors and friends, let us rally. If the cliff we will fence, we might almost dispense with the ambulance down in the valley. Well, he's a lunatic, the other folks said. Dispense with the ambulance? Never. Oh, he'd dispense with all charities too if he could. No, we'll support them forever. Aren't we picking up victims as fast as they fall? And should he dictate to us, shall he? Why should people have said stop to put up a fence when the ambulance works in the valley? But the sensible few, who are practical too, will not bear with this nonsense much longer. They know that prevention is better than cure, and their party will soon be the stronger. Encourage them then with your purse, voice, and pen, for while other philanthropists dally, they will scorn all pretense and put up a stout fence round the cliff at the top of the valley. Better guide well the young than reclaim them when old, for the voice of true wisdom is calling. Better close up the swords of temptation and crime than deliver from dungeon or galley. Better put a strong fence at the top of the cliff than an ambulance down in the valley. I want to thank Prevent Child Abuse Utah, because they are some of the strongest voices in this state for putting a fence at the top of the cliff. Yes, that's worth applauding for. Now, like many of you, I have taken a ride in that ambulance. And because I know the statistics, I know that many of you here understand what I'm talking about. But unlike broken bones and stitches that will heal in 4 to 6 weeks, unfortunately, the emotional and spiritual damage that children go through from abuse too often lasts a lifetime. Now, how many of you in here are ready for Halloween? This is my kids when they were all little. Halloween, raise your hands if you love it. Okay. I like the fun part of Halloween. I don't really get into the dark stuff. But we have a tradition in my family. We all head over to my brother's house. We all live in the same neighborhood. I know, it's kind of weird. And we build a bonfire in the driveway. We cook hundreds of hot dogs. And throughout the evening, at one point or another, everybody in the neighborhood comes by to warm up, get something to eat, and visit in the midst of their trick-or-treat. So it's become a fun tradition. And 5 years ago this week, I was really surprised to see an old friend of mine. I grew up with her in our neighborhood in West Valley, and we visited for about 10, 15 minutes. And as she was hugging me goodbye, she whispered something in my ear that I will never forget. She said, "I am sorry to know what Jennifer did to you. I want you to know that she did it to me too, and there are others." And with that, she walked away. Now, Jennifer was Teacher of the Year twice in the state of Utah. She was the most popular teacher at the school, hands down. And she was my abuser. The 4 years that I was sexually abused by her turned me into a terrified little girl inside much of the time. It took me 20 years to come forward. By then, it was too late to do anything with the police, but it was not too late to go to the school district, and I did. She confessed, and within 2 days, she was fired. Unbelievably, only 2 years later, the state school board held a closed-door meeting, and they handed her her license back. I was devastated. I honestly did not know what else I could do, and I really blamed myself because I thought I should have come forward sooner. So at that moment, I just suffered in silence for the next several years. But as I watched my friend walk away that Halloween night, I saw in my mind's eye thousands of innocent children that I knew would not stay innocent if somebody didn't do something. I had to do something. And that was the moment that my pain began to be transformed into a pathway to my peace. I started working with legislators here in Utah and other survivor groups. And in the last 5 years, we have passed over 10 pieces of significant legislation, which we don't have. Thank you. I'll accept that applause for the many, many people who went in on that. Thank you. And these pieces of legislation are right now at work in the state of Utah, and they're being copied in other states, having a national impact. They're helping to keep molesters out of the classroom, give a voice to survivors, and ensure that there are less victims in the future. So since that time, prevention has been my passion. Now, when I was working with the state legislature, came across this wonderful report. Everybody should read it. They did it in 2015, and they were trying to figure out what is the financial cost to the state of Utah for sexual violence, right? The study includes all ages. But I want to show you just a few very important statistics from this report. On this particular page, what I have circled is the statistics for child sexual assault or violence for children ages 0 to 17. Now, if you look at what this totals down to for each incident, not each child, for each incident of sexual violence that is caught, it costs the state $184,504. Now, considering that the statistic has been 1 in 5 children will be sexually abused by the time they are 18, you tell me if that's not bankrupting our state. The next statistic is just as interesting to me. Of all the money that Utah spends on sexual assault consequences, 84.4% of that goes to the perpetrator and caring for their needs at that point. 15.1% goes towards victims, and a sad 0.5% goes towards prevention. So let me ask you, does that look more like a fence around the cliff or an ambulance down in the valley? So what are good fences? We've got to build these fences, don't we? I think everybody in this room agrees. We have to have fences to protect not only our children, but our adults as well, right? We have to change what happens in our society. So we've got a bunch of different fences here that need to go up. And when I do my presentations, people walk away knowing 5 fences, 5 principles they can instill in our community and within themselves and their children that will help to prevent sexual abuse and also help those who have already become victims to heal. What I love about Prevent Child Abuse Utah is that they take all 5 of these fences and they touch on each one of them to create an amazing foundation that the rest of us can build on. How many of you have ever built a fence? Raise your hand if you've had to build a fence. First of all, I'm sorry. That's just a hard thing to do. And the first thing you learn is that you'd better have a good foundation, right? Your entire fence depends on how deep you put those posts, how good of an anchor and a foundation it has. Well, Prevent Child Abuse Utah is building a solid foundation, but it is up to the rest of us to build those fences on top of their foundation. They cannot do it alone. So let's quickly, obviously I don't have time to teach you all these today and how to implement them. I only want to mention them long enough to show you why Prevent Child Abuse Utah is worth your time, your attention, and your resources. The first 2 fences I consider external fences. Oh, excuse me. And that means fences that we can put up on the outside. You can just put them in place. Your children have no choice. It's just going to protect them. And the first one is we have to build the fence of common sense. Now, I don't know about you, but I think common sense has been misnamed because it's not very common, right? If you don't believe me, go driving on rush hour traffic and then you tell me how much common sense you think the average person has. So we need to build common sense. If you think that your child or your grandchild was born with the knowledge of how to protect themselves and how to stay safe, you are wrong. And in my work, I've discovered that even most adults, most parents, don't really know how to keep their children safe. We like to think we do, but we don't know the basics. Prevent Child Abuse Utah spends their entire efforts building common sense in our community. The second fence is building transparency. Now, transparency is something we can put in place in our homes, in our churches, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, and it's really not that difficult to do. It's pretty simple. Now, how many of you quickly, do you know the little jingle that Prevent Child Abuse Utah teaches the kids in schools? Raise your hands if you know it. Oh, please tell me I'm not the only one in this room that knows this. Okay, you're all about to learn something cool. All right, when they go to the kids, this is what they teach them over a couple days. I went and observed last spring, got to go to an elementary class, and I learned their little jingle. It goes like this. Listen to that uh-oh feeling. You like that? How many of you wish you could go back to your college days and listen to some of those uh-oh feelings? Yeah, I know. Okay, say that with me. Ready? Listen to that uh-oh feeling. Okay, I'm a choir teacher, people. That was horrible. Try that again. Everybody. Listen to that uh-oh feeling. Okay, then it's followed with say, no, go, tell. Say that part. Say, no, go, tell. That simple phrase touches on every one of the rest of our fences. And the one I love for transparency is go tell. You see, darkness cannot live in the light. As soon as you turn the light on, it has to disappear. And by giving children permission to go tell someone, open your mouth and go tell a trusted adult, gives them the ability to shine light on something that should never stay in the dark. I love that about Prevent Child Abuse Utah. The internal fences, 3 internal fences. These are things that we have to instill in ourselves and also teach our children from as young as we can possibly teach them. The first one, and the third fence we're building, is to trust your feelings. Learn to trust your feelings. What's the first part of that jingle? Say it with me again. Listen to that uh-oh feeling. Okay? I grew up not trusting that. In fact, I kind of grew up did you guys grow up in the era where it was like children should be seen and not heard? Right? So if I had a bad feeling about something and the adults around me didn't, I was expected to keep that kind of quiet. Keep that on the down low, right? But we have to teach our children to trust their feelings. My mom is 81 years old. She lives with us right now. And if you were to ask her what her deepest regret is, she will probably tell you that 1 year before my sexual abuse began, she got an uh-oh feeling. I had been invited to the house of this teacher, and I was going with another student and another teacher. And I'm telling you now, nothing inappropriate happened. Nothing. And it wouldn't happen for another year. But my mom got a very strong feeling that said, you should not let her go. And me, I was a whiny, know-it-all 13-year-old kid. And I begged and I pleaded and I talked her into it. And she never got another opportunity to listen to that feeling again. That was her one and only warning. And she wouldn't find out for decades what that had cost me and our family. So we have to learn as adults to listen to that uh-oh feeling, and we have to teach our kids that it's okay. You trust it. If you feel that, you follow up on it. It's okay to leave. It's okay to tell. And isn't that beautiful? That is what Prevent Child Abuse Utah teaches our kids. Number 4, we have to build the fence of building our voices, being able to speak. Just as my mom had that biggest regret of not listening to that uh-oh feeling, my biggest regret was that I wish I could go back in time to the moment when I finally clued in that things were bad, and I wish I could get myself to open my mouth and say no. But I couldn't. I was frozen. I couldn't do a thing. It took me 4 years to be able to put a stop to it because I didn't trust my voice. So we have to build our voice. Now, why don't most people use their voice? Why don't they just say no? Why don't they go tell somebody? My experience has shown me that it's usually because the 5th fence is not in place. The 5th fence is to build trust in your ability to make a positive difference. Now, let me explain this. I grew up, because of the circumstances I was in, questioning my worth from as far back as I can remember, and feeling very powerless over my own life, feeling very helpless. And so when things went south, I honestly didn't believe that anything I could do would make a difference with that. We have to train our kids, and there are leadership skills we can teach our kids. There are things we can do to help them realize, oh, guess what? If something isn't working the way it should be, if things are not good, you have the ability to work with other people and make a difference and make something change. But if children think that they're going to tell you and you're not going to listen, or you're not going to believe them, they will never open their mouth in the first place, because they will believe that it will only get worse for them if they say something. Prevent Child Abuse Utah does a beautiful job of handling this in their trainings, because they teach kids, once you go tell, if nothing changes, you need to tell someone else. And if it still doesn't change, tell someone else and someone else until it becomes better for you. They empower our children. I am so grateful for Prevent Child Abuse Utah. When I discovered that they existed, I was absolutely thrilled. And I would love to give all of you leaders a huge hug, because you are the people that understand. If the cliff we will fence, we might almost dispense with the ambulance down in the valley. Thank you so much.